Tekken 8 review, and obviously everyone's been asking. Everyone's like, so where the heck is the Tekken 8 review, dude? We're 3 days official release, technically 4 days with like the little bit of an extra day. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers yet for anybody that's curious. I'm just going to talk about the overall quality of certain things in the game. I just kind of wanted to give us a bit of time to just reflect and also see how the net play goes and how the story mode plays out, because I could not do that before the game was out. As much as I wanted to play more online, their review session was only like a few hours. So I got to play a lot of people that were in my local region, but barely any that were far away, which was an issue to me because I didn't feel like I can properly give at least a somewhat comprehensive review on what the online of this game is like that might reflect what actually happens to people when the game comes out. That's why we waited. And this has kind of happened to us with several games. I could say the netcode's really good and the online's great, and then the game comes out and the matchmaking doesn't work. You're probably just like, hey man, should I buy this game? Yes. To set up my review, this is the best Tekken has been since Tekken 5. And we're not just talking about gameplay, which is clearly a very big, important factor to me. After doing something like the Tekken Legacy, where we went in depth with all these games and evaluated what makes them popular, what makes them good, why did these games get the audiences they did, we realized that the Tekken series exists through its financial success and its ongoing 8th iteration now with side games and everything of the like, because of casual fans. I'd argue the casual fan base exists even bigger for a game like Tekken than it does for Street Fighter. Luckily, the majority of Tekken releases are big-ass games with a lot of endings and a lot of extra modes and a lot of things that you can do. They are full packaged games, and a lot of folks are conditioned to the fact that, oh, if I buy a new Tekken, I should be getting my money's worth, right? Whether it's story mode or, you know, online features or big roster, there's an expectation now. And in my opinion, fairly confident in saying that Tekken's the best it's been in a long time. Going back to 2005 and obviously Tekken 5. Tekken is arguably now the most feature-rich the game series has ever been. And that's crazy. So let's just like break it down, and I'll talk about the quality of each said thing. The game actually has a story mode this time. And this is a true story mode. This is not something that is similar to like a force mode. This is not something like Tekken 7 where it has a story mode, but it's like peaks and valleys in terms of quality. This is a game that it actually has a relatively traditional, but not super long story mode where we just follow one character and a narrative. So that's good. That's a big draw to the game. The game also has a secondary story mode that acts as a tutorial, which is creating a character and going to a variety of arcades, fighting ghost opponents and, you know, getting better at the game, while a main character sort of teaches you how to play Tekken, right? They sort of emulate the 90s/80s arcade experience, which is pretty awesome. And in my opinion is one of the best ways to teach people just like how to play the game. It's kind of confusing because it's called Arcade Quest. It should also say that it acts as a tutorial, because a lot of people are sort of confused. This game has no tutorial, what the hell? It's called Arcade Quest mode, and it actually plays out like a very fun sort of like adventure of you becoming a Tekken player in some way. It's one of the best things you could do for a tutorial in a fighting game, in my opinion. A negative of the game is that we're missing some features from the previous Tekken. Treasure Battle is gone, where you kind of go through creative characters and then you earn lucky boxes and stuff. Instead, they integrated it into the Super Ghost Battle, where you're gonna go fight other ghosts of players and you're gonna earn things from them. And by fighting them specifically, you can unlock gear and abilities and skins through fighting the ghosts. And guess what? It's pretty fun, man. It's relatively relaxed. You actually can kind of learn things from them. They're scaled in a way that, oh yeah, even if it's this character, they sort of repeat certain actions and attacks, and you're like, oh, I can defend against that. It's sort of like a much better way of doing Treasure Battle, in my opinion. So Tekken Ball is back, and a lot of people would be confused. Oh, Tekken Ball's been back. Well, that was exclusively the Wii U version of Tekken Tag, and it wasn't as good a version of Tekken Ball. Believe it or not, a lot of people have fond memories of Tekken Ball, Tekken Bowling, side games, stuff like this, and they are kind of been gone for a while. Tekken 7 obviously had Tekken Bowling, but Tekken Ball had only appeared in Tekken 3 and Tag 2. And in, like I said, Tag 2, it's only okay. And hey, guess what? It's pretty good in this. It's actually like really fun. I wish I knew the nuance of like why it's really fun, but for some reason I have played Tekken Ball on Tekken 3 and Tag 2, and clearly Tekken 3 is just better. And now this is like the better version of it. It's significantly better. The nice part about it is that in other games like Tekken Bowling, it wasn't online, which was a pain in the ass. Now they dedicate a specific area of the online battle hub to Tekken Ball, so you can fight other people at Tekken Ball online. The quintessential feature of all Tekken games that people sort of look forward to as well is not just roster and graphics, it's also content. And that content comes in the form of CG ending. Tekken sort of set a staple for itself way back in the day from Tekken 1. When you beat the game with a character, or you go through their story mode arcade, whatever, you get a CG ending of some kind that sort of explains what's going on with that character, if not as a fun, goofy little slice of life. And I really dig the way they handle it here. It's better than what they do in Tekken 7, which was like 1 or 2 or 3 fights, some really brief stuff. It's like 4 or 5 fights per character now, but seems to be directly relevant to that character. So your character obviously has like rivals and unique story fights and stuff. So what they will do is they'll pitch you against your character against rival slash story fights. And it's kind of wonderful. It's like, oh, okay. Customization, though. And a lot of people are praising Tekken 8's customization, which deserves praise. It's cool to have customization and the ability to customize your characters in games. Don't get me wrong. It is nice. We have the experience of Tekkens that came before it. So Tekken 7, Tekken Tag 2, and especially Tekken 6. Tag 2 and 6 are like unique because they get the most customization of any Tekken game ever. And unfortunately, this one does not have nearly as in-depth customization as those. It's okay, but it's pretty clear that it's like one step below what Tekken 7's was. And we've learned for years that from the devs directly that customization is a pain in the ass. Gives you a pretty healthy amount of customization, and that's nice in an era where you can clearly charge for a lot of this stuff. And they aren't seemingly doing that. But in comparison to like previous Tekken games, it might not hit the levels that you're looking for. I don't think we're gonna get the pizza He-Man eat it in the same way we did with Tekken 7. Maybe something close will happen. There is a huge draw to this game that I have to give it props for. This is a big personal one, which makes me actually just fall in love with Tekken 8. My big gripe with fighting games over the years has been that a lot of them are seemingly becoming simpler. They're just toning down mechanics and characters for the thought process that if our game is just easier to play, if the characters just don't have as many things you have to remember or do, then more people are going to be interested in playing it, right? An easier game is just a better game. Much less, you know, characters that have less to them. You don't have to have the stress of figuring out how to use them. For a long while, fighting games were going down this route. In some situations, it was either beneficial for the games or not. The problem with the majority of these games that were like this, especially for the first few years, is that they end up being very dry. The gameplay gets figured out relatively fast, and the gameplay loop is essentially established, and it's kind of a rinse and repeat situation where you're sort of watching the same stuff happen over and over again. And that's been kind of rough for the spectator aspect of fighting games. Tekken 7 was happening during all this stuff. And what was Tekken 7? It was the fighting game of the people, the ultimate spectator fighting game, which gave it a very, very, very fun visual aspect. Leads us to Tekken 8. Tekken is the ultimate legacy fighting game. This is the game that is still based on the gameplay loop of Tekken 5, bro. What could they do to get more people interested in Tekken from a corporate level? Well, we just got to cut down the move list, man. There's just too many moves per character. How are we going to ask everybody to remember how to break all of King's throws? Actually, let's give them only 3 throws, you know? This was the mentality for fighting games for a long time, dude. Let's just cut everything down. And that's what I was worried about. I was personally worried that Tekken was going to go down this path. As much as I struggle learning everything in Tekken, that is actually what makes it great. So cutting to 2024. Tekken 8 is out, and clearly things have been shifted around. Characters lose some things in some spots, but also things get flip-flopped into other directions. They get added to other moves to give the game some relative spice, where it doesn't feel like, oh, you're just going to play Leroy the exact same way you did from Tekken 7. No. They move things around in certain directions to make the game feel like a new game, and it feels very intentional. We don't want the game just to feel like Tekken 7.5 because we were getting that sort of criticism from the betas. I was even saying the same thing. I don't feel like that's as much at the launch of Tekken 8 because this game has so much shit you can do gameplay wise. Characters have so many like new moves and rerouted strings and all of this shit, man. Seems nuts. Legacy characters that come from previous games just have like a ton of things now. Fully kitted tools and things that are in some ways easier to do. Like lost stance stuff, some electric moves. They actually mechanically updated the game to take the high skill ceiling that existed in previous games and let's give people an ability to do some of this now. So it's like, okay, they are making stuff easier, but what they did was also expand it. This is what fighting games were like in the 90s and the 2000s. All fighting games back then became simpler, but they expanded instead of just being simpler, you know? Tekken 8 exactly does that. It routes everything around, it gives you more stuff to work with, but a lot of those individual elements became easier to do. So now applying those things in a new way is expanded. All this heat mode stuff, new moves and attacks, new combos, new wall bounces, tornadoes, like all of this shit. This is truly a different game now. So there's so much to learn. So even like veteran Tekken players, you watch them, they're clearly good at the game, but they're also struggling. It's also like, yeah, this is a new game, dude. So I have to give Tekken a massive amount of credit. Perfect fighting game to tone shit down, bro. And don't get me wrong, A lot of Tekken 7 fans and people that specifically love Tekken 7 will say just that Tekken 8 is essentially baby Tekken, for sure. And I get that. But in reality, characters are doing more things than they ever have. We're seeing new things in Tekken. It's working at a pace that's different from previous games. It needs to feel like a sequel. I think that's a huge win. For someone that wants to come back to these Tekken games over the years and play them with friends, I could definitely see Tekken 8 being like, oh man, like, this is the game, bro. Like, this game is so cool. Like, and I can see this being a banger Tekken. With that being said, you're introducing all of these new elements to a new player base, right? What happens when you now ask your audience to effectively learn twice as much as a game like Tekken 7? Seems pretty daunting. You guys are literally designing yourself into a corner. Tekken 8 is going to be the impossible fighting game. Now everyone's going to say it's way too hard. We're finally in the era where fighting games aren't afraid to teach players, where Tekken truly is a series that has needed the training tools and has had some pretty good ones in the past, albeit you had to pay for frame data, is the ultimate series that needs training tools to teach you how to play the game. And believe it or not, if you want to talk about accessibility in fighting games, Tekken might be up there, dude. Tekken 8 might actually be the game because they put so much effort into their, not just training tools. A good training mode's great, but people don't know how to utilize training modes very well. So what do they do instead? They put super interesting replay options where you can go back and look at your fights and have the game tell you where you messed up and have you recover from those moments and actually do it yourself. We tried it out and it's like, it takes a little bit of finagling, but it works. And it's like, whoa, okay. So this is a game where you get quote unquote knowledge checked. So what Tekken 8 does is give you all the tools necessary to learn that stuff. Hey, if you're getting your butt kicked by this character, go here and check this out. Hey, if you're having trouble against this character as well, you can go into Ghost Battle, also get cool rewards and learn how to fight against this character as well. It's amazing. It's actually amazing. Seems to be hitting everything. And now we talk about the netcode. And here's what I got to say about the netcode as I try to get concise, because I've been talking about the netcode a lot for a few days. Going through ranked and experiencing a variety of connections. Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, wired, everything. I accepted everything, man. Just to get the full breadth. I went to other regions, played people in Japan, played people from East Coast to West Coast. I got at least a pretty decent chunk of experience in comparison to other fighting games. Here's the thing. It's the best online 3D fighting game ever. And that's not actually saying a lot. The experience we have is Dead or Alive Online, like Virtua Fighter games to a certain degree, is Soul Calibur games, and previous Tekkens. That's pretty much it. And it's sad to realize that all of those games in their history have a kind of weird and shitty online. So your match quality in Tekken 8, from my experience, is better than any of them. Do I think we are reaching the levels of like a Guilty Gear Strive, even Dragon Ball Fighters, right? Recent rollback, Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising. SF6 is like amazing netcode, right? And the real reason we're not there yet is because Wi-Fi matches is like a complete 50-50 toss-up if it's going to be playable or not, unfortunately. And I have had Wi-Fi matches where they're playable. But what Tekken 8 has an issue with is packet loss. There's only one kind of netcode that works well with packet loss that can actually, like, when you have micro packet loss, suddenly we're just losing connection for like a few milliseconds and we have to do something about it. Well, rollback netcode's amazing for that. It's kind of what it's for. And games that have a real big issue with packet loss are obviously delay-based netcode games. So the weird thing I got to say about it is that Tekken 8 is a game that obviously has rollback functionality in some way, because I have played matches of people that are really far away, and guess what? There is not a ton of input delay. The number one telling sign of a game that is a delay-based fighting game first is like an East Coast to West Coast connection. Oh, buddy, you'll notice it, dude. You will 100% notice the difference. I've played some pretty distant connections in Japan, and they've been completely playable. I'm like hitting electrics and stuff, like actual electrics. And East Coast to West Coast is almost undiscernibly no different than what I was playing from like local connections. So again, the issue is everything else. When the connection's bad, you feel it. It's like, oh man, this game doesn't have rollback because obviously my inputs are super delayed. We're both hitching like crazy. In my head, I have no idea what their netcode solution is, but they're clearly doing something that involves rollback in some way. It's just not traditional, but the experience that I've had is worth its weight in gold. The majority of matches I played with this game online, I don't even realize I'm playing online. I was able to fight a variety of opponents, react to things, and move. I was able to just play Tekken online. And that has never happened before. I can't believe it. And that's something that I've wanted for Tekken since Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection on PS3. I got to give the game credit. It's not perfect. It clearly is still lacking the online net play features. The lobby mode is very cool. It isn't as feature rich as something like a Street Fighter 6 lobby, but I think it is nice. And I think that the little group matching, all this stuff is really cool. But there is stuff that's lacking in player matches, especially for tournaments. I think critically, it's like a 9.5. And if we got to the point where the net play over time gets better, I think it's literally comparable for like the highest grade a Tekken game could possibly get. 10 out of 10 sort of fighting game stuff. I literally give it the same personal like rating as something like Street Fighter 6. It's impossible to think that that would happen. It really is. All the other reviews out there that are talking about this are actually warranted. The game getting one of the highest review scores of any Tekken game ever. That feeling like we're back to Tekken 3/Tekken 5 level quality. We're here, dude. It's got gameplay, it's got modes. Oh my god, I didn't even talk about how much I loved the story mode. I love the story mode. I loved it. Tekken 8 does a lot for me. It does a lot of stuff that I just didn't think would be possible from Bandai Namco. Tekken 7 made them a shit ton of money. And in many situations, just because some previous thing made you a ton of money, doesn't mean that the next thing gets a lot of money. Well, how about you make this thing again for less money? No, you can tell. This is arguably one of the most expensive Japanese fighting games I've ever seen. Jukebox mode! Don't even get me started on the music, dude! How can I be critical of the music? Even if not all the music in Tekken 8 is amazing, we get jukebox mode for everything, and it works awesomely! Jesus Christ! 9.5, final review, okay? I can't give it a perfect score because there is room to improve. But if you're like, hey, should I get this? I wholeheartedly, enthusiastically, if you like Tekken in any way, even if you're new to fighting games, this is like the perfect time to jump into this game because there's gonna be a ton of people online. It's crossplay, bro. I didn't even get to say that shit. It's the first time Tekken has ever been crossplay between PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Jesus, man. I keep forgetting of positives that this game has, that I'm just taking for granted now. Now that's just normal. I'm very happy. I'm very happy.